You can definitely sense the hesitation of voiceover guy. When he gets to Pan, that's where he starts to am I doing this right?
He's terrified.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, I was terrified the first time I met you. But I didn't go the Matt Humans route where he just called you Sammy P for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I tackled it head on. Just like I'm sure a lot of bettors already did, tackle these NCAA football win totals. They were released yesterday. Yes, that is a segue, my friend. So football win totals were released yesterday by Chris Andrews and everybody here at the South Point Hotel and Casino. I'm sure you guys poured over all of these yesterday throughout them. The opening numbers already have some moves, of course.
The best part were the teams that are set at 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 teams that have win totals at 2.5, which is hilarious. Oregon State is actually a 2.5 win total.
Yep. They're not going to be good, man.
That's bad. 2.5?
They're not going to be good.
And I'm not going over that either.
Well, let's bring in Danny Sheridan. Nice enough to join us here. Of course, handicapper and works for USA Today. Danny, thank you for the time. Appreciate you coming on. So when it comes to these college football win totals, when they're this far out, just a brief over, how would you tackle looking at some of these win totals when you're looking to handicap and maybe playing some of them over or under?
Well, first of all, Chris did a hell of a job. I don't pick overs or unders, but I'll certainly go through a bunch of them. I have them in front of me. If you have any questions, holler. Or if there's any other, I'm like you, by the way, that the 2.5 is really intriguing. And I think every 2.5, I must have missed the third one. I know that Oregon State was one. I think Kent State was one.
Texas
State? I definitely
State?
go under in those two. And what was the third one?
I think Texas State, Danny.
Texas State is 3 right now.
3?
I think it moved to 2.5.
There were 3 2.5s. It's on there somewhere.
Okay, all right. Well, I can't find it. But looking at the schedule, the sheet, Alabama, they're at 11. They're going to win 11 or 12. They're double-digit favorites, as you probably know, or they will be over everyone on their schedule, but Auburn, about 8 over Auburn, I guess, right now at South Point. So I'd have to pass on that. It would be real tough to play. I'd either play it over or pass, and I'd probably pass. I don't bet on sports, by the way, but I'm very happy that people do. Auburn, I would go under. They're 9. They would have to beat that. They'd have to beat Alabama and Georgia, who'll be gunning for them at Alabama and Georgia. Very tough to win in the SEC on the road. Auburn's got a very good team, and they'll probably lose a game in the middle. But if I had to put a gun to my head, I would definitely take under. Would not take over. Most people down here are taking Auburn over. I think Auburn's going to be a great team, and the schedule's just too tough for them. Clemson, you have South Point has them at 11. I would either go over or pass. I think they're 11 or 12 win team. Florida, and I would go over 7.5. Wouldn't be proud of it, but they've got a lot of talent, and I have a lot of confidence in Mullen, the new coach. Yep. Florida State is 7.5. I would go under. I think they're going to be a big disappointment. First-year coach is very good, but he hadn't put his program in place. Georgia, 10.5. I would go over. Easy schedule, very easy schedule, and a decent, pretty good team. I don't think as good as last year. Stop me, by the way, if you have a question. Mm-hmm. Kansas, every year at Cigar Aficionado, I do a worst 20, worst 16 teams that are Power 5 teams. Kansas, I've had them, luckily, I've had them as, this is their three-peat. I had them as the number one worst team in the country 2 years ago, last year. And I'm going to have them a three-peat this year. So they're over and unders 3. They're horrible. I would go under. The guy is improving, but hell, when you win one game or you don't win any, pretty hard like the Cleveland Browns not to improve. Kent State, I'm glad you pointed that out. They're absolutely awful. I would go under. Kentucky, 5.5, under. Maryland, 4.5, under. Miami of Ohio, that's a tough line Chris has there. 10. I would probably go over. I think Miami's a 10 or 11 win team this year. They really have a good team. Ohio State, I would go under. I think the over is a favorite, $1.20. Yeah. And the over and under I've got at 10.5. I would go under. I think they're going to lose to Penn State and probably another game in there, so I would definitely go under.
Danny, what about LSU? Looking at LSU 7 right here, and I know Ed O is a favorite for a lot of people. They like the way he coaches, but the issue that I've always had with LSU is they just don't find quarterbacks, right? And that's the most important position in college football. They never have a quarterback. They always have somebody who can't make throws, and I think that's really frustrating for their fan base. But I look at their schedule. They get Miami week 1. They go at Auburn, at Florida. They play Bama at home. They'll lose that one anyways. But then at Arkansas, at A&M, 2 teams that'll be down. What do you make of LSU at 7?
Well, no, you took the words out of my mouth. If they have the best talent in the league, not the best, but almost as good as Saban. Defensively, the last couple of years, they're just as good as Alabama. I think it was 0-0 at halftime a couple of years ago when they lost 10-0 because they had a stiff at quarterback. It would be like me at quarterback. I'd be an upgrade, and that would be horrible. But it's a very tough number. It's 7. They're going to lose to Auburn, probably lose to Miami. Alabama, they'll play out. They'll beat the spread against Alabama, but they'll lose to them. So it's very tough. Orgeron, I like him personally. He's a great recruiter. But you made the comment about everybody loves his coaching. I like his style, but I don't necessarily like his coaching. And I wonder about getting rid of the offensive coordinator and some of the changes he's made. But he's a good person, hell of a recruiter, pretty decent coach. But he won't be back next year if they don't do better than 7 wins. At least I don't think he will be. So I would say, I'm sorry to hedge on you, but I'd say 7's a great number. I wouldn't complain if you gave me either side of that number. I'm trying to think where I left off. Miami, I think. Mississippi State, 8.5. The guy left him a great team. I would go over. The coach from, I can't think of his name, from Penn State, the offensive coordinator, he's their new coordinator. He's the new head coach of Mississippi. I don't know how to play in Starkville, Mississippi, being from the Northeast, but we'll see. But I would go over. I think he has a great team. And I don't know if we might have done this one. Ohio State, I think I did say I'd go under. Notre Dame, over 9.5. I think they're underrated. I wrote them a lot last year. I think they have a very good team. Oregon State, there's no way I could go over 2.5. I don't know how they're going to win a game. I guess they could. I haven't seen their schedule. Probably win one game. Tennessee, 5.5, and go under. Texas, 8.5, go under. Toledo and Troy, both 8.5. They play in the Sun Belt down here.
Danny, I actually wanted to ask you, since you brought up Texas, if you wanted to focus on the Longhorns in general, because I was actually pretty intrigued by what the Longhorns have here. Now, a couple questions at quarterback in terms of, do they have their guy? Because you split time between 2 dudes, and Ellinger last year was pretty serviceable in some big spots, but also cost him a couple games, namely that USC contest. Why would you go under with Texas?
I just don't think they're that good.
Yeah.
I don't think I would make the over and under 7.5, maybe 8. When I said they're not terrible, but I think they're overrated. And I'll get in that. There's a couple of games on their schedule that I see them losing, and I'll go into that in a minute. So right away I'm thinking 3 losses, and I don't want to go over 8.5 because it could be a 4th loss. But that's why. It's just an early opinion. I don't know if I'll be right or wrong, but we shall see. Southern Cal, like I told Brent, I don't know, last year we were talking about Southern Cal on the air. They need to start cheating more because I don't think they have a good team. If they want to compete for the national championship, they need to start bending those rules. I would go under 8.5. Washington, I don't think it's any surprise. I think they're going to be very good. 10.5 is a hell of a number. I would go over. I think they're an 11-win team, maybe 12. It's possible, but say 11. And Virginia, I was going to say under, but yeah, I would say under. Anyway, that's my not recommendation, but those are my choices in May. And I won't change my mind. I'll either pass on it. If you called me 3 months from now and asked me if I changed my mind, I might pass. But I don't give both sides. That's what I feel now, and that's what I'll feel in just before kickoff, unless there's some injury I don't know about.
We're with Danny Sheridan, USA Today. We know Ohio State is the cream of the crop in the Big Ten, but then you have 3 teams right underneath them. Got Penn State, Michigan State, and Michigan. Which one of those 3 do you like the most? Not so much win total, but which team do you think can make the deepest run? Penn State, Michigan State, or Michigan?
Well, you're stealing some of my thunder on the South Point College Game of the Year odds. Mm-hmm. By the way, I'm assuming you're using the Don Best rotation. I'm assuming that's what it is. They're the best there is. I like Penn State. I think they'll beat Ohio State. So when you say Ohio State's the cream of the crop, I picked Penn State with the spread 2 years ago, and they won outright because of their defense. Loved them last year. Thought they would win outright, and they didn't. I think it was 39 or 38 or something like that. They should have won the game. They got too conservative. And this year I think they're going to pop Ohio State. And according to the South Point, you're getting 2.5 points in September 29th. Penn State catches them early. Ohio State may have quarterback problems early, but I like Penn State to win that league and to be in the college playoffs. And I won't change my mind on that. I'm definitely going to, unless something terrible happens, I'm going to take Penn State. That'll be one of my predictions during the year.
Chatting with Danny Sheridan, handicapper, sports analyst as well. Find him up on Twitter at Danny Sheridan1. So what about some of the Week 1 lines that, of course, were posted here a couple weeks back at the South Point? Did any of those pop off to you, Danny?
Well, what I like to do is I like to go against big teams the first week that are looking ahead. For example, Georgia's playing South Carolina in the second game. That's the SEC East game, or at least those two teams think it is. So you got Georgia playing Austin Peay. There'll probably be no line on that, or there won't be till game time. I take Austin Peay in the points. Coastal Carolina. I'm from the South. I have no idea where the hell Coastal Carolina is, but I would take them in 29. I assume they're in the state of Carolina. 29 and a half. I would go against Southern Cal and Stanford because they play UNLV and San Diego State. Probably feel better about UNLV in 28 because I know they'll be looking ahead to each other. Iowa State, they'll point to each other. I would take Northern Illinois plus 14 or better against Iowa, and I would pick Appalachian State plus 14. Again, I think they're pretty good, Appalachian State, against Penn State, who I think will will definitely dominate Ohio State and win the conference. Penn State plays at Pittsburgh. That's a brutal rivalry the second week. So that's what I look for in the first week, and I'm sure there are a lot of games. If you ask me in general, I'm not high on Texas. I agree with the South Point's opening line. I'd make the game pick 'em. It's now, according to what I received yesterday, Texas 3-point favorite. If I pick the game, I'll definitely take Southern Cal. Texas 2.5-point favorite over TCU. I don't think they should be. I definitely would take TCU if I pick the game. I told you I'm going to pick Penn State. I'd be shocked if I don't pick them. They're getting like 2.5 now, and don't know what they'll get overall. Kentucky, Tennessee, that's in November. And by the way, the reason why I'm not picking a bunch of them because these lines are pretty sharp. In my opinion, they are. They're really good lines. I don't see. I don't see any value, but I'm sure others would disagree and probably have. Kentucky, Tennessee, I would take Kentucky. They're 1-point favorite. They're a better team. I think they'll beat Tennessee. November the 10th, that weekend, I would also take Michigan State. They're plus 8.5 against Ohio State. Like Washington State a lot in late November against Washington. Washington humiliated them last year, and it's a tough rivalry. They're playing down there, and I'm trying to think if I missed any. I'd probably take Michigan and the points. Under no circumstances will I pick the other side in those games. I'll either pick them or I'll pass.
Hey, Danny, we appreciate you coming on and giving us some of your selections and looking ahead. We appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll get you on down the road as college football gets closer.
Appreciate you having me on. Thank you, guys.
You got it. And again, you can find him up on Twitter at Danny Sheridan1. Let's take a break because we do have Western Conference Finals Game 7. So a little bit of the association on the other side here on The Edge.